Inside Vision is brought to you by New England College of Optometry.
Inside Vision. I'm Howard Purcell, along with my partner in crime, Erik Liljegren. We're happy to bring
always
you
Always the crime it is.
Always the crime. That's where we got it started, buddy. 12 weeks. Can you believe it, man? It's incredible. It's been an amazing ride. It really has. It's been a lot of fun. We've had some great guests. We've had a really good time. And today's episode, something to think about, from marketing, where we kind of started it all 12 weeks ago, to public health last week, where we learned a lot about what's going on out there in our world and how we can continue to protect ourselves and minimize risk. And Erik, it's been amazing. I'm here in California this week, and I was reminiscent of a line from the Grateful Dead. What a long, strange trip it's been. It's been crazy. And you know what? Today, I think it'll be a lot of fun to take a little bit of a look back. What do you think, buddy?
I like it, and I like your Grateful Dead theme there, and I could even throw a couple more titles out of there, like maybe Eyes of the World or Prophet on the Burning Shore, California. We're both here in California.
We are, and it's beautiful out here.
It's been a long, strange trip indeed. Here we are at the Pacific Ocean.
It's amazing. And you know what? 12 weeks ago, we kind of had this idea that we wanted to bring to our community, a community we love so much and has been great to us, information and insights, really actionable type of things that we could really make happen. And really what it was about was kind of the road back.
And good morning, everybody. You are live on the first episode of Inside Vision. I'm Erik Liljegren, and standing by in Boston is Howard Purcell. Good morning, Howard.
Good morning, Erik. How's it going? I'm really happy to be here with you this morning on our first episode of Inside Vision. Thrilled to be with everybody. And I just want to kick it off by saying this. You and I had spent some time thinking about what small role could we play in bringing some information to the industry that has been so good to us and that we know and love so well. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to bring some timely information to our audiences, things that I know they're thinking about, things that I know are on their mind, and ways that we can bring some really actionable type of information to everybody. Start your day off on the right foot. So our intention is to bring you the best and the brightest that we have, both inside our industry and outside of our industry. We're going to cover those relevant issues, as I mentioned, that are important to you, both in your practice, in the industry side, in the employer side, and the media side. Anything we can do to continue to help you to really not just about, for us, the here and now, but the here and when. So how about that, buddy? We had a pretty ambitious goal. We looked a lot younger 12 weeks ago, didn't we?
I definitely could use a haircut. It's been, I guess, maybe 12, 15, 20 weeks. I don't know how many since a haircut, but, I'm starting to get the wings under here. I'm starting to hear it from the family.
But you know what? I hope we did reach some of the goals that we had in really delivering some key information. Before we go any further,
I mean, I can say that our guests throughout, and you just brought such a great community of guests to this program. I mean, we've heard from the highest levels of doctors' alliances, of group purchasing, from insurance programs, from frame vendors to lens manufacturers, marketers. I think it's interesting that everything funnels into one point ultimately, and that's the patient and their ability to receive care and quality products and services. And I think that everybody that's been on this program in one way or another has contributed to a little bit of information about how best to deliver that stuff in what has become a world that's turned upside down. And I think, as you mentioned, at the very beginning, and with the clip that we wanted to bring these elements together, it's nothing but a journey. You just have to keep looking for answers. And that's what I'm hearing, in every industry, out here in America. We've got air travel, hotels, restaurants, every kind of transportation, parking, services, everything is turned upside down. So in that sense, we're all on an even playing field of trying to regroup and reorganize and increase and improve business in America.
Well said, my friend. Well said. And I will just say, you mentioned our guest. Not a single person we asked to be on this show said no. And I think that was incredible. And you're right. We went to the very top. Everyone we asked wanted to participate. And you know why? Because they wanted to make a difference. They want to be able to impact this industry that's been so good to all of us. And I think one thing we've learned over this 12 weeks is how close this industry really is, how it works together, how it bands together to support each other. And, speaking of that, if you allow me just a moment, I think there's a few thank yous I'd like to throw out for people who support us. I know you support me on these thank yous. Certainly our friends at Jobson have been been amazing. Mark and Marge and Nancy and those guys supporting our 12-week journey here. And we want to thank them very much. Odie's on Facebook. Alan Glazer and that team have been supporting us. Thanks to them. Julie Corwin, who's the head of marketing at New England College of Optometry. Julie's been wonderful. Then, of course, Dave and Adam. Couldn't do it without those two guys. They work behind the scenes to make this all happen. And to make
all
us
the guys at All Things Media and all of our partners.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, and I don't know if all of them.
Visual Concepts out here in California too. Visual Concepts, great program out here.
Absolutely, thank you. And I know you know a lot more of the team. I've engaged more directly with Adam and Dave, and we appreciate Ziggy.
Yeah,
as our friends call them. And great people, and we thank everybody for their efforts and everybody working together. So with that, Eric, if you're okay, why don't we bring in our guests? Talking about people who have supported our program and been there with us pretty much from the beginning. It's a pleasure to bring in our two guest hosts with us today, Dr. John Rumpakis, Holly Rush. Hey, guys.
Hey guys, welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
And I would add also, not just guests, but members of the family. You guys are veterans of the Inside Vision program. Thanks for everything that you guys have done. How's everything going?
We're like bad pennies. We keep showing up, right? Yeah. That's been a great,
always welcome,
great honor to be
and
included.
So glad to
in
have
this.
you guys back.
Yeah, I agree, John. Thank you. Everyone knows John from Something to Think About. You've added so much to the show at the end, really tying things together and giving us truly some things to think about, John. And thank you for the contributions you continue to make to the profession and your support of Inside Vision. From the minute we asked you to be part of this, you signed up and every week delivered. So thank you. And Holly, you know what? Everyone loves you. The show's ratings went up significantly when Holly joined. I'm sure it wasn't a coincidence, but no, Holly, we appreciate it. You've added so much to the show. You've added so much to our profession, but we appreciate you being part of Inside Vision. So, wow, you know what? We thought we would try to bring and deliver some of the kind of highlights over the past 12 weeks and maybe just have some conversations about where we are today. Things have changed so much, so quickly. If you think 12 weeks ago, Eric, what was going on 12 weeks ago when you started your journey to now, it's just amazing. In some ways, some great things have happened. In some ways, perhaps we wish things had gone a little bit different. But overall, we have traversed interesting and
I want to add too that as we take a look back in this show to the weeks that have gone by and maybe try to tie up some loose ends on ideas and come away with some, that all-important business language. What are the takeaways, that we can take at the end of this program to say, there are 3 or 4 themes that everybody should or could focus on and figure out, the way forward. But we want to add something new every week. And this week I've got 2 really hardcore Southern California entrepreneurs with me, and they're seated right next to me. I'm just going to tilt my computer and introduce one at a time. We got Steve Klein right there. He's with Total Vision. Catch him at Total Vision LLC.
Thanks for having me, Eric. This is it's kind of a great thing to be able to be at the end of this amazing journey. I can't wait to see more clips and hear more about it.
Yeah, we've had Steve in the mix from the beginning. In fact, he did the very first Something to Think About and gave us some really great detailed information about staffing levels and how to measure your HR costs. Now, we also have another veteran eye care entrepreneur. We've got Bill Gerber from OMG and Contentlinq. Bill, say hello to everybody.
How's it going, everybody? Good to see you. Glad to be here. And,
hey, Bill.
Congratulations on an amazing journey. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
So as we look back, guys, these gentlemen are available to react, from an entrepreneur level in Southern California about, all the changes that have occurred. And so I think as we go through these topics, we can bounce stuff off them as what they see in the marketplace here in California.
Sounds great. Appreciate it. Hey, tell Gerber, he and I have something in common. He likes to bang on the drums as well. So sometime he and I are going to have that dueling drum off, I think, or something like that. You up for that, Bill?
I'm ready for that, Howard, for sure. We'll get the drum cage and spin around a little bit.
Sounds like fun, buddy. Thank you guys so much for, particularly for you, Steve, for kicking things off for us, and Bill, for all you do for the profession. You've added so much. I know I've worked with you in many different capacities. So your insights have been really helpful to a lot of practices. Appreciate what you're doing. So with that, why don't we kind of kick things off? We started the show talking about marketing, and we brought on 2 people who are just amazing marketers. And Carl Bracey, who for a long time was the head of marketing for Essilor, really the guy who started so many really influential programs in our profession. Think About Your Eyes being one of the key ones, really kind of kicked it off. And I thought, gave us a good way to think about marketing and its impact. So why don't we run the clip with Carl?
So in our world, marketing is everything you do as a practice. It's not just that flyer that you stick on the doorstep of the neighbor's house by your practice, okay? It's everything, all the way from how your patient becomes aware of your practice, all the way through their experience at the practice, all the way to follow-up and rescheduling. That is all marketing. So to me, it's asking the question, why is marketing important right now? It's kind of like, why is your practice important right now? Well, it's a patient journey. So I think if I were to give a soundbite, I'd say, know your patient journey right now, because that could be changing. And if you know all the elements of your patient journey, I think you yourself sitting down with your staff can say, hey, what might be affected that we may want to change, and keep it current with the situation that's going on. So to me, marketing expands everything, all the way from the beginning to the very end. And of course, that's important right now.
So I think, pretty prophetic of Carl talking about the 12 weeks that were to follow and all this journey we were going to go through. I teased him after it wasn't part of this clip that patient journey is a very sort of marketing jargon term that marketing gurus like to use, and he defined it a little bit better. But Holly, perhaps you could comment on this journey part and how much this journey has changed and what you've seen and the engagements you've had in this profession, how people have adapted over these past 12 weeks.
Yeah, I love what Carl said about breaking marketing down into the basics, right? And really what marketing became in these last 12 weeks is brand values and communication. Communication became so critical, not only in running businesses, but staying connected to the community that we serve. And if you are a practitioner, your patients are your community, and your voice and your communication to them became your marketing message. And that was, I think, a lot of what was embedded in what Carl was saying, is understanding that information is really power and key. It sort of calms the water right now. And being able to set expectations and help people really understand and guide them through the process of engaging with you is critical. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, on the call today, and maybe some of you, I've had my own, I would say, doctor engagement / experiences over the last few weeks. And there's a very wide variety of how practices are communicating with their patients. Where I feel most comfortable right now, and I think it is marketing at its core, is when there's a proactive messaging to me as a patient and a consumer. So I know what to expect. I know how to behave. I know how the practice is going to engage with me, and I feel safe when I'm in that environment. And those are the scenarios right now that really feel the most stable. That's where I'm going to feel the most comfortable going back. So marketing is something that we all need to be aware of and be actively engaged with in our practices. It's not something we can delegate to somebody else. As practice owners, we have to be very involved in that. But the simplified form of marketing is communication. How are we communicating to whom, and how are we bringing people back and making them feel safe and secure?
No, well said. I think nothing more important right now than making people feel safe. John, maybe you could give us some perspective, a little bit more, perhaps from the financial side. We're seeing good news as we read reports about practices ramping back up. Marketing obviously becomes critical. And by the way, don't you love how marketers say it's all about marketing and salespeople say it's all about sales? I love that.
Yeah.
And anything.
Well,
John, maybe,
I think Holly hit. Oh, I was going to say, I think
Please.
Holly hit on it. It's all about communication. I think what struck me the most, though, was how often the message had to change in the past 12 weeks, right? So when we got the very first stay-at-home orders, people were trying to reach out to their patients to let them know that they were still there to provide essential care and emergent care. Then the message changed to, well, how are we sterilizing our offices? And then we had to address different population groups, because different population groups had different risks associated with them, and how are we going to communicate to keep them part of our practice network? And then as things started to reopen, communicating how the process was going to go, trying to, again, as Holly said, keep people engaged, but also make them feel at ease. And I think that's what's really helped people on the road back to financial success. I mean, most of the practices that I work with and talk to on a daily basis, they're 85, 90% of where they were pre-COVID. So I think that they've done a really good job in being engaged in their community, knowing what to communicate. It's basically what to say, how to say it, and when to say it, that's going to be able to keep somebody engaged and understand that your practice is a vital part of their lives and you're there for them.
That's great, John. I was going to ask you also, go ahead, Holly, please.
No, I was just going to say, well, one other observation as it relates to marketing and how things have changed is the importance of using all of the tools available to us to convey those key messages to our patients. I think as an industry, there's been a lot of conversation about, technology and enabling connections with patients on a much more regular basis, whether that's through contact management systems or through our websites or maybe through social media. But I think what we've come to realize in this process is that all of those avenues and more are critical ways to stay connected, not just in a crisis, but every day to our patients. That's how we keep people loyal and engaged and coming back to us as a practitioner.
This had a different side of things, though, as well. We also had an internal customer because many individuals and their staffs were the hardest people to get back into the practice, right? Because the staff was the one primarily in contact with the patient, and they had this risk-averse type of a situation. And I know many practices that are telling me that they were only able to bring back 50% of their staff because some of them were couldn't find childcare, so they had to stay at home, couldn't come back to work for that. So it was an internal communication and an external communication at the same time.
Steve, I know you had a thought there. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that whole theme. It's all about marketing. It's all about patient care coming from a practitioner here. So, no,
good job.
Honestly, the thoughts about the communication are so critical. But something that I watch when I visit our offices is the communication matching the actual care? In other words, is somebody not wearing their mask, even though we say we're wearing masks? Are we not showing the patient during the patient journey that we're cleaning and disinfecting? That message has to be repeated over and over. And the message and the actions have to match. It's just so critical.
So critical, Steve. Agree with you. Absolutely. Hey, Bill, I'm curious from your end. I know you're in the marketing side of things. What changes have you seen over these past 12 weeks? I know you've been really out there, really trying to help us be better at marketing and get our faces and our information out in front of patients in unique ways. But what changes have you seen over these past 12 weeks?
Well, I'll tell you, it's been really a trip for me and our company and all of us, no question about it. And
we had a real California guy says he's tripping out here on the coast
at 6:30, right?
At 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
The party all night.
It was a late night, right?
Yeah, it was.
Big party here in La Jolla. So I think one of the biggest surprises for me personally was how many ODs reached out and how many chains reached out to us and said, you know what, we are totally unprepared to continue the relationship with our patient as our offices are closed. Our online presence isn't where it needs to be. We can't sell glasses. Some people had contact lens sales set up. And so I think from a marketing perspective, this was a huge wake-up call, maybe even a slap in the face for the industry to say, you know what, we were not ready, right, to continue this dialogue and to transact business. So I think, now that people are reopening and have reopened, we're seeing this surge in sales, so some pent-up demand. But I think the light has gone off for a lot of people to really get into this idea of, we need to stay connected with our patients and our staff online. We need to stay connected with them in office, and we need to be better connected.
You know what, Howard, I'd really like to call some attention and context to where these guys are in their businesses, my guests here in California, because Steve, as you know, is the doctor-facing component to Total Vision and is recruiting and constantly on the move to acquire practices in California. They're at what, 35, 36?
35, yeah.
And their economic numbers have just come out over the last few weeks. And we're not going to reveal any specific information, but you guys are strong. strong and strong. And then Bill, on the other hand, is doing new interiors and design for practices. He had many projects that were happening, as COVID hit. But both of these guys, and they can, I think, each speak to the fact that their businesses are strong and successful right now. And it's really, I think, coming from California and one of the hardest hit areas, it's really encouraging to see where they've been. Guys, talk about the successes so that everybody can hear about it.
So I'll jump in first. One of the, I think, if you look at say the Jobston's data, and we followed those trends and those curves over the last 12 weeks, we pretty much went right along those trend lines, and we're this June year over year, we're over 100% of same store from last year, from 2019. So
that's incredible, considering the drain.
I'll tell you, as we all have talked about, this has been a massive journey. And but it allowed us, we had this pause time where it allowed us all to fix some of those things that Bill was talking about. What can we do to kind of move forward to the next, I hate to use this term, but the new normal, right? How do we respond? What is everything going to look like? And we hit our 100%, and it's really exciting.
It's incredible. And you mentioned the pent-up demand, and it's just that business is not going to stop. We're going to keep moving forward, but we've had this huge roadblock, and he who can adapt quickest.
No doubt. I mean, we have talked to so many practices out there that said, you know what, we've got this time, right? We've got some time where we can actually focus on the business. So many docs, but very successful practices said, I spend most of my time in the back doing exams and I don't have time to focus. So can we have a discussion, right? And so I think it's a great age of awakening for the industry where people took that time. So hopefully that trend will continue and people continue to think about how do we innovate, and not so much how are we competing against another eye care professional, or in my case, how are we competing against another software company or design company, but really how are we competing against Amazon, right? How are we competing against Apple and just for discretionary dollars? And that's our big opportunity. And I'm hearing from practices all over the country that they are doing great, and that in particular capture rate is skyrocketing. And so I don't know if that is, curious to hear your opinion, if that's really a function of taking more time with the patient, or if it's just mindset and determination,
or if it's that they just don't want to go to another location because now they come in, because this is part of the workflow stuff, guys, is that on the plus side, even though we've had all those workflow slowdown issues, but nobody wants to go to two places instead of one. So you get into an independent eye care professional location, you're probably going to purchase there, is what it looks like right now. So maybe that's an upside, silver lining. We might not have expected that 12 weeks ago.
Yeah, thank you, Erik. I appreciate that. And very encouraging to hear the positivity there. And clearly two people and their teams who have really focused on that road back and in trying to make sure they're prepared. So congratulations, and we love the positivity. I'm sure not everybody is in that same situation, but the positivity we're seeing overall in this industry will get us all back there. And thank you for those encouraging words. It appears that the pent-up demand we've heard about, at least in the situations that you guys have described, is truly there. So thank you, guys. You know what? We want to move to the next clip we wanted to show you. And this is our very own Holly Rush. Holly, when you were on the show the first time and then we dragged you in for more, you shared with us a really amazing commitment you were making to this industry. So why don't we run clip 4?
So just this week, I launched my own personal challenge, and it's called the 30 and 30 Challenge. And basically what it is looking at the next 30 days, how can I help 30 other professionals in a time of need? And I'm tapping into my network, people that know me and I know really well, and saying, introduce me to someone in your professional network that you think could either use business advice and support right now, a thought partner, or could really use career guidance. And there are no strings attached. It's just time together in the next 30 days to help navigate really uncharted waters. And that's really it in a nutshell.
What a fantastic offer. And I think we've had a graphic on the screen, correct? With some of that information. Yeah, so your email is out there, and I'm certain that many people will be reaching out to you to take advantage of your experience. And it's a very generous offer.
Oh, I know they will, but you're going to have to change the name, Holly, because it's going to be 29 and 30. Because I have already raised. I'm raising 28.
Listen.
It's going fast.
The more, the merrier.
So I guess, Holly, we have to ask you about the 28 people that you were able to work with after we took 2 of those spots. No, I think we'd all be curious to know, what was the response to that and how did that go? I'm sure you learned, as well as the people who worked with you. Anything that you could share with us that would be, insightful for us to understand based on those relationships you built?
What an incredible ride it's been in these last, I'd say, probably more like 6 weeks since we had that conversation. I think it might even be longer than that, because it's episode 12 and it was episode 3, right? So more like 9 weeks. I could have never imagined how fulfilling it would be to go on this journey, to just take some time to be with people where they're at right now, and provide some level of support. So the 30 and 30 was really about just tapping into that network and seizing the moment where people's minds were very busy and being able to provide some clarity, some focus, hopefully some direction, and in some cases help them move forward on their next steps. And it became more of like a 50 and 50, I think, more so than anything. I wasn't concerned about, reaching that 30 mark once things got started, and it sort of took on a life of its own. People referred me to other people, and it's really just been fantastic. I mean, the spectrum of people I've spoken to, from CEOs dealing with business challenges to I had a woman in the network who had worked 35 years with the same company and had just been furloughed and then ultimately laid off as a result of COVID, had no savings beyond the next 2 months, had no job prospects at 65 years old, and was terrified. And this is the spectrum, I think, that we're all dealing with today, that this crisis has created, and being able to provide support and help people in those moments was incredible. I think that the simplified version of what I learned is that there are 5 really simple words that we can inject, I should say, into every conversation to really make a difference. And it's, how can I help you? It's really very simple. It's, how can I help you? It doesn't have to be a 30 and 30 challenge. It doesn't have to be, a big movement per se. It can just be about showing up for the people in our lives and asking, those very 5 simple words, I should say, because that's how every conversation started. How can I help you, or how can I support you? And here we are, again, 9 weeks later, and I am blessed with 50 new people in my circle of, I would say, of friends and colleagues who I know will stay part of my life going forward, and hopefully mine and theirs.
That's truly amazing. Go ahead, Erik. I don't think we can hear Erik right now. So.
I'm sorry. I had myself muted because, believe it or not, there's a hot tub over here that started making noise with the water. This is California, so I muted it. But Holly, I loved what I was starting to say was those 5 words. If you think about it, as I've been traveling the country and just attaching to really some really core American companies that I've had contact with, again, like UPS and John Deere and Coca-Cola, and just as you travel the country, you run into their plants and their distributors, and just seeing these logos and driving the country has just made me think about historic U.S. American business. And when you say, how can I help you? Think about that. That goes back to answering a phone anywhere in America, in any business, when you pick up the phone and say, thanks for calling InsideVision. Erik speaking. How can I help you? I mean, that's really, that's what it is, right? Forever.
It is, but I think what I took away from the experience is how meaningful, when you stay in the moment of those 5 words with someone else, and you put yourself in their position for those few minutes, whether it was 60 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever I had with someone, it's really powerful, and it can change someone's trajectory, whether it's in the day or the moment or their life overall, to be more profound. And so I think we we tend to say things very routinely or matter of factly or out of habit, like you said. How can I help you? But are we really
Mean it,
listening?
is what you're saying. Mean it. Yeah.
Right. To me, in these last 12, 16 weeks, what we've all experienced is that really listening from everything to, how has COVID impacted people's businesses or lives or personal situations, financial situations, to what's happening with our social unrest and Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's really, how can I help you? How can I support you? And staying in that moment, being present for the people who are in our lives and really supporting them on their journey, it doesn't get any more meaningful for me than that. And so that was really what this journey was all about. And I'm super grateful for it.
These guys want to jump in on this. They're both, I can hear them chomping at empathy and service. So I'll give them each a chance to say something about that.
We were talking earlier about some of the practices said 50% of their team either couldn't or wouldn't come back due to fear and those kinds of things. And I think the number one factor that allowed for success of your whole team coming back or not is that empathy. Did you, when you said, how can I help you, when you saw fear in the eyes of your employee, did you really mean it, right? Mm-hmm. And did you make them feel safe coming back? And I think that, we saw a majority of our folks come back and feel good, but there's still a lot of fear out there. And we really do need to continue to reach out and make folks feel comfortable coming back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's our job as leaders and entrepreneurs, is really to help people to not freak out, right? And I think it starts with us not freaking out at the same time. And that's, for me personally, it's been one of the biggest impressions, honestly, is that this whole idea that, I was used to kind of coming and going as a leader, right? I've traveled a lot, and but being grounded here, my little town, Savannah Beach, has been really good, I think, in terms of connecting and making people feel comfortable. We had everybody, obviously, in our companies went home and went to work and stayed at work, and we did a morning stand-up every morning, 9:15, and everybody was connected. You can see, through video, you can see the fear in their eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And so much of it came around to people saying, well, we got to set policy. But really, I said, let's have discussions. We'll set policy later, but let's have discussions and help people. How can I help you?
Management and internal marketing, that's what, everybody's got to sell their own constituencies to, number one, want to come to work and feel safe at work, and then be able to serve patients. If you can't really keep, that interior part of your company safe and secure and at least mentally sound, then it's hard to do the rest. So much more from you guys, I know, coming, but we had to get that in.
I just, one of the things I wanted to say is that I have found that the attention span of people is about 10 seconds in these 12 weeks or however long it's been going on. I mean, everything jumped. It just depended on what was in the news. I mean, at the very start, I probably did 30 to 40, webinars on telehealth because people were needing to know how to provide care remotely. And, you find out that there's so much more misinformation on there on how to fulfill those requirements from coding and billing and economics and how to drive that. And then it shifted to my practice value. I don't know how to value my practice because I don't have any income and banks aren't loaning on things. And I think that, how Bill said it earlier was so important is that, this really kind of ripped the Band-Aid off of the practice and really exposed a lot of vulnerabilities that people, kind of ignored because they were profitable and they were complacent, kind of, the fat and happy type of a scenario. And now it exposed all these vulnerabilities, whether it was in marketing, communication, patient care, financial, staff policies, all of those types of things. And they had time to deal with it, but it was also somewhat overwhelming. And I think people had a very hard time focusing on what to address first, on how to prioritize it, and then be able to get a game plan that actually resulted in an action plan for them to make a change in their practice behaviors. And maybe that goes back to what Holly was saying most importantly, right, is being able to get people to focus and be able to really understand what do you need to change to get a meaningful outcome on doing things.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah, I would say, sorry, Howard, just to close out that thought, I love what you just said, John. And I think 99% of the time with all the people that I spoke to, they already had the answers. They already had the answers. I wasn't telling them something that they didn't already know or hadn't already thought of. It was just getting them unstuck. And as you said, John, there was a lot coming at everybody, especially as business owners, as business leaders, as family providers. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's fear. There's instability. There's just a general sense of sort of what the heck is next. And it gets incredibly overwhelming. So being able to take a step back from that, and it's something that we talked about, Howard, on one of our shows, is like putting yourself in a position where you can think clearly. Easier said than done in a moment of a lot of change and crisis. But we have that obligation as business leaders and people who are influencing people to give ourselves some space or to ask for help so that we can think clearly, we can lead from a position of clarity, and again, help others on their journey as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. Appreciate that. I was going to add a couple of thoughts, and you know what? We thank you so much for making that commitment. It's the type of person you are, and we all know that. Anybody who knows you knows this is part of your character and who you are. But I would encourage others out there to consider doing something similar. It may not be 30 people, but maybe it's 5 or 10. This is such a critical time. It's been mentioned by everybody here, the difficulty that we're all struggling with and getting through, and encouraging times ahead. And it's looking very positive. But to make the kind of commitment you made and giving back is significant. And I think at no better time or no more important time than now for us all to make a similar commitment. So thank you for your leadership in kicking something like that off. And I hope that other people will consider doing something similar, because clearly, not only did you help a lot of people, but it was beneficial to you as well in listening to it. And we hear that clearly. I want to mention one book, too, that was written by one of our guests. It's called The Go-Givers. I did read it after it was recommended by one of our guests on the show a couple weeks back, and it really fits this theme so well. And I would encourage those of you who are watching to consider reading the book Go-Givers. So with that, here's where we're going to go on to our next clip. We had a fortunate opportunity to have some great leaders join us throughout, but we did have one specific show focusing around leadership. And we were very fortunate to have two great people, one of which you've already heard from today. But the other one on that show was Swami Rhodes. Swami is the global president of Johnson & Johnson Vision, amazing man, and really someone who really cares about this industry in a deep way. So let's run the clip of Swami and him talking about leadership.
And there is a balance between empathy and still not giving up on what we are here to do from a long-term perspective. So always making those small concessions, but reminding people of what we are here for is going to be very critical.
Well, I'm pretty sure you are that beacon of hope at J&J, and probably at home as well. So thank you for that those inspiring words. I think it's at times like this where really people really shine. Their true leaders really step up. You see people, really a lot. You learn a lot about people in situations like this. Holly, everyone I've ever met who's ever worked for you is so loyal to you, trusts you so much. And I'm sure you're happy to hear that, but I hear it over and over again from anybody who's ever worked for you. We had to get that last little piece in there, Holly, to make sure you knew how we feel about you too. Hey, Steve, I might start with you on this one. And leading a big organization like you do, how do you balance that empathy? I know you're in a positive time now, but even thinking back 12 weeks ago to try to make people understand your loyalty to them, your sincerity, the care that you have. At the same time, you're running a business and you have to make business decisions. How do you balance that? Unfortunately, we can't hear you guys. Sorry.
Looks like Erik was our. Well, he was in
charge. Sorry, it's my fault.
Howard, it is a really, really important issue. Is that balance, and I think the balance changes along those 12 weeks. Right at the beginning, you could think of 100% of all your energy needs to go towards that strong empathy and trust and calming and being a leader that people that everybody can feel that they're safe. It's a safe place, right? And as the 12 weeks went along, you don't lose that empathy, but you really have to start focusing on what things can we do as an organization to become more profitable, or at least become profitable during this period of time at all. And what things can we do together to grow and to, these patients have, they have a lot of call it income that they were spending on other things like baseball or movies or whatever, and they can't spend it. They're spending this money on things for themselves now. They're taking care of themselves. And so how can we take care of those needs in our offices and then of course become, more profitable? You can never leave that empathy place though. So the balance, you may shift the balance a little bit, but you really, at this point, we're along that road. We have to start improving our numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I want to let John make a comment, and then I want to go show you guys another clip. Go ahead, John.
Oh, just real quickly. I mean, I think that the keys of leadership really are being able to get somebody to do something differently tomorrow than they did yesterday, right? And whatever that may be. And what Steve described in practice terms, I talk about with business leaders and try to get them to be better leaders in their organization, is to be able to have that vulnerability or empathy, but also to have a very clear vision of where they want the business to go, be able to articulate it very clearly, and then be able to demonstrate through short-term wins on how you can be successful. And all of that creates very, very good momentum in a positive direction in a practice. And I think a lot of people, a lot of optometrists that were business owners, but not necessarily leaders within their practice, found themselves in that vacuum or that void, and then had to learn very quickly on how to change their behaviors themselves. Even when they had internal fear, they had to not be able to demonstrate that, but they had to show confidence to help improve, their path forward for their staff and for their patients.
Absolutely,
yeah,
John.
Howard. Sorry, just one closing thought on this. There's been a lot written on leadership profiles that are emerging for the future and what the most important characteristics are that the world needs today in leadership. And it's two words, and they've been said multiple times here. So I wanted to underline them for us all and for all of your listeners. It's empathy and strength. And the empathy is being and being with other people in that moment and hearing and seeing and feeling what they're feeling, whether that's a consumer or a customer, a patient, an employee, whoever it might be. And then strength being exactly like we were saying is not letting up on the vision, the direction that you want to take that company or organization, and the results that you need to achieve. So empathy and strength. And the one person that I've been watching very closely and who actually who spoke to this quite extensively is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, who is a very young, up-and-coming political figure, has had one of the most successful results coming from the pandemic, was all about the people, listening to what they needed, driving results, had a successful outcome, and she's now heralded as one of the most favorite leaders of all time in New Zealand as a result, someone with virtually zero political experience. And those are her two words to live by, empathy and strength.
Pretty amazing. And it's so clear, particularly at times like this, where our true leaders are. And I'm looking at many of them right here. So we're going to move on to another clip. Erik, I know you remember this one. I'm sure you do, because, when we're doing a live show like we do, crazy things can happen. You never quite know what's going to happen. You could be out on a beach trying to cover a story and you think that it's just a normal day, and then Candace shows up.
Well, I am a resident of Palm Beach County. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I am a voter. I am outraged by, typically liberal media is usually covering people. They're following them down to the beach to tell on them. When we have civil liberties, and I am a constitutionalist, and I believe that we should have the ability to use our beaches. So I'm happy if you guys are covering the opposite, because I vote for freedom, and I am going to vote against any elected official that does not defend and protect the U.S. Constitution. My name is Candace Rojas. Thank you.
Wow, Erik,
Candace.
thank you for interviewing Candace. You know, I think it's similar to what we
I didn't interview her. She did, she demanded the
She
speech.
just jumped right in.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's strong opinions in many places, and you never quite know.
I mean, there's passion. I mean, she was a colorful character, but her sentiment is echoed by so many.
And that's true. And, you know, look, we're not going to be political here. That has never been our intention to try to be political here. But the reality is people have strong opinions. And I think our intention was to demonstrate what was going on out there. And Erik, you did a fabulous job of demonstrating what was going on out there. That's for sure. John, Holly, I'm sure you've seen this in where you guys live. I know, Holly, you're in Florida. Florida, not a great place right now, and things that are going on. I know, John, you've talked about still a lot of demonstrations going on where you are. These things are important, but yet I know we all agree, and I'm hoping you two can reinforce the idea. I mean, if it takes wearing a mask to reduce the spread of a pandemic, then it's not a political issue. This is a health issue. And I know you guys feel strongly about it. And John, I don't know if you wanted to comment at all.
Well, you know, I just think so. I really liked our segment last week on public health, right? And I think that optometrists, you know, we're 45,000 strong in the U.S. healthcare community, and we should really be leading the way in what we're doing, not only in our own behaviors through wearing masks, because we demonstrate those behaviors both in our practices and in our communities when we're outside of our practices. And, you know, I think that, you know, as you said, that's probably one of the best things. But I also made a comment last week in our Something to Think About segment. I'd like to call on all of our leadership to get optometrists involved in being able to test for COVID, and actually when the immunizations come out, be able to give the immunizations for COVID and those types of things. That is where optometry really needs to be in the public health arena. We need to be out in the forefront if we're really going to be primary care.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So our next clip we're going to show you, and by the way, when you watch that previous clip, the best part about it, next time you watch it, look at Neil Blumenthal's face. It's just classic when he's
he was. I don't know if we have a clip from him coming up or not, but he was just blown by that. Yeah.
We do.
You know what?
Yeah,
you know what wasn't on the air? There was a couple of other elements of that same show. If you guys remember, before the show actually began, you remember how much activity there was on the street right there, and different kinds of people walking up and wanting to say something. And I would say that the takeaway from that is people do want to be heard, whether it's about freedom, or whether it's about safety, or whether it's about their business. Having all of the media characters of our present day, our network anchors, and this is something that struck me about the entire trip, was almost anywhere I went, it was a hot button issue. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, outside the Trump event on the Saturday night before Father's Day, and there were no network anchors anywhere outside that. There were some local field reporters, not even attached to live trucks. Like, there haven't been reporters in the field, and I noticed that in that particular day at Delray Beach, that there was so much going on there, and so much that people wanted to say, and there really wasn't a media presence, and I haven't seen it anywhere, and it was kind of. It impressed me.
Yeah. There are so few reporters out there. One of the clips we didn't show was you almost getting arrested by the local police department. So maybe we'll have to have that for the next.
I don't know if I was almost arrested, but I was definitely almost accosted. I mean, they were the beach patrol. They weren't even police, and they were trying to stop us from broadcasting. It made no sense. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen the tone in this country in that way, that somebody can think they can tell you that you can't report from a beach.
Well, unfortunately, I think everybody's a bit on edge. There's no question about that. So, you know what? We mentioned Neil a couple times, and Holly, you did a wonderful job of interviewing Neil on the show. Those of you who don't know Neil Blumenthal, he's the CEO of Warby Parker, co-CEO. He's done an amazing job really coming in this industry and freshening it up a bit. I think not unlike what Holly did when she came into this industry. I really have a lot of respect for Neil, and I would show you a quick clip of Neil sharing some of his thoughts.
For one thing, we're practicing social distancing. So we We had our store design team look at every single store, and we've completely changed the layout of those stores. We put vinyl markers on the floor to demarcate 6 feet distancing. We've created separate sections so that way people can shop away from one another. We're limiting traffic into the store to ensure social distancing. When somebody comes in, they're greeted. If the store is at capacity, which is often just a few people, we're entering people into a wait list and texting them when it's time to come back.
So Neil was really trying to address kind of, the road back and what kind of things Warby was doing. Perhaps, Erik, maybe our friends over there, Steve and Bill, would have some thoughts about how they've managed through this, what Bill's seen, and perhaps what Steve's been doing in his practices. And you started to allude to it earlier in making people feel more comfortable coming in.
Well, I think one of the parts that's been super inspirational for me is seeing how people pivot and adapt. My design team had been completely focused pre-COVID on how to create a super engaging space where people browse and interact and pick up product, things like eliminating the barriers between waiting spaces and optical and, seeing the financial results of that. So that's pre-COVID. Then all of a sudden, right, we are in this situation planning for reopening where, to Neil's point, you've got stickers, right? You've got distancing, you've got sanitation, and to see how my team pivoted and got into designing spaces that would be effective post-COVID was amazing. I mean, they were inspired. They're working from home. They got kids, climbing on them. But my design manager, Armando Lau, just cranked out with this team concepts and designs and just really
all with a particular focus on workflow. And so
absolutely.
what would be some specific examples of how your designs have changed? So just to clarify for anybody who might not be familiar, your firm does design and build, right? And full implementation of interior retail spaces.
Absolutely.
Give me one example of how you improved workflow for COVID.
So understanding the patient journey and touch points, post-COVID it's a totally different world, right? I mean, it's not the same. Just come in and browse around. So specifically, we've been really looking at the combination of the physical space, but also the software that helps people navigate through. And we got very motivated to accelerate development on our software platform called Sherpa that helps the patient and helps the staff make things more efficient. Doing things like digital lens demos, right? Measurements, transactions, looking up product, doing virtual try-ons, all in app and in store. That's a huge part. And then how does that tie in with the tech, the digital signage that might exist at a location? So really integrating technology, I think, is our opportunity right now in our industry. And that's been our focus. Not just make a beautiful space that's comfortable, but also, how to really leverage that tech that we're
and think strategically all the way through about the touch points of a patient. Like, what we're finding, is that, like Steve will be able to speak to this. You have to be able to engage the patient from the moment they make the appointment to the time that they leave. And if you're creating environments that do that, Steve, how are you adapting to this new world? With your patient flow, and what are your goals for the next 3 to 6 months that you are about to focus on?
So you just mentioned a key word, which is goal. And Holly mentioned this earlier about your vision. You have to be so strong in that vision. The one thing that I believe we have to do is to understand the patient does not want to be in the environment very long. And John, you talked about ripping the Band-Aid off. One of the things that we have done very poorly across private practice optometry is the patient just is in that journey too long. Mm-hmm. And post-COVID, they don't want to be there. They still want to feel cared for. They want to get their needs met, but you want to do so and have the physical environment set up to be able to achieve their needs and allow them to get back out of that environment. as quick as possible. I think that's really, really a critical point that we have to make sure we do moving forward.
I just want to add to that. I think this time has given us an opportunity in the industry to communicate expectations in terms of what a visit is going to look like. I spend a lot of my life out in practices like you guys, obviously. And the thing that always comes up is patients saying, I didn't really know how long this is going to take. And quite often, right, by the time they get to optical,
at their watch.
They're like, oh man, I've been here an hour and a half. Maybe I'll buy somewhere else. And, I did have one doc last week who said, you know what? I'm not calling it the capture rate anymore. He goes, I'm turning the tables and calling it our abuse rate.
The longer we keep them here, the harder we're being on them.
Well, yeah. And if they walk, that's our fault. It's not their,
their fault. Go ahead, John. I think John wanted to make a quick comment here. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So Bill, one of the things I think that's also very important is that this has really exposed the weakness of an optometric practice, right? So you guys are talking about the retail experience and getting everybody through the examination. What I've really found is that, I've been always a big advocate of that a practice needs to do their analysis as if they're running two different P&Ls under one roof, one for the optical and one for the professional services side. And now with the increased or decreased volume because of all the protocols that are in place with disinfection and all of those types of things, it's really changed the landscape on profitability for managed vision care plans. It's forcing people to really analyze what plans they can and cannot take any longer based upon their reimbursement and how much time they're spending. Most of these managed vision care plans, if I'm seeing patients now one every hour instead of one every 30 minutes or whatever your metric is, you're actually losing money on that actual encounter if you don't have an optical sale. And now you have to start making some very, very significant business decisions going forward, because if this is going to be, as Steve said, the new normal in a reduced volume but higher touch type of a thing, am I going to be able to participate in those situations, and how am I going to manage or direct or have my goal for profitability on the professional services side? And I think that that's a whole new arena that people are really having to take a hard look at. It's not new to, the financial analysis, but I think a lot of people are are being forced to deal with that now.
Yeah, very good insight, John. Thank you very much for that. So appreciate, all the contributions you have made, but I have to say there is one show that we had that has provided us with the most feedback of any that we did in the 12-show series, and that is no offense to any of my colleagues who are on here, but the show we did, Optometry in Black and White, is the one that has gotten the most feedback, and I'd like to show you, maybe have perhaps a couple of clips, and we'll talk a little bit about the 13% promise, but I want to turn it over to Dr. Darryl Glover.
I mean, statistics have supported that if you have a racially diverse team, you can really outperform non-diverse teams by about 35%. 35% is a big number. It's a big value. And in regards to, revenue growth, when you have a diverse team, you can grow your revenue growth by 24%. I mean, statistics are out there to support this stuff. So we just have to do a better job in incorporating more diversity so that we all can win. Because at the end of the day, my goal, Adam's goal, is to make sure that everyone gets eye care. And the best way to be able to get eye care is if we're all on the same page and we understand each other's backgrounds and we're able to communicate with those patients and understand what's going on with them and have empathy and be able to prescribe the best solution for their problems.
Yeah, so this was a great lead into talking about a comment that he had heard, that it just cost more to be more diverse, that companies in some ways were afraid to make decisions in the diversity and inclusion side because it was going to cost more. And his point was, and he backed it up with some decent data, that actually it's quite the contrary, that in fact, by creating a more diverse workforce at all levels, by the way, not just at the lower levels, but at the upper levels, it puts your business, whatever that business may be, in a much better position to understand your demographic, to understand patients. And the question was asked to him about, people say to him, well, I don't have any Black patients in my practice. And he said, well, of course you don't, because you haven't marketed to them. You don't understand that audience. So curious from you guys, and Holly, I know you've been in the corporate world yourself, ever dealt with decisions like this about how you're going to spend your money with regard to D&I, and how did you reconcile those decisions?
Well, I think we have to stop thinking about it as a decision that we have to make, and instead just realize it's the right thing to do. that it's just the way that we need to operate today. It's not, I'm not going to do this because I have to do something else over here. To me, having a diversified workplace and have an environment where everyone can be themselves and contribute their best self to work every day, that's our obligation as leadership. So I think we've got to remove the dialogue or the banter about like, do I have the time? Do I have the resources? Do I have the funding to do this? It's not an option anymore. And yes, I mean, I think you can boil it down to the business results, that diversity and having diverse boards, diverse leadership, diverse companies produces the best results, but then leadership has to take action. And what I love that these guys embodied is this idea of there can be a lot of, I would say, passion and momentum, but without plans, actions, and accountability, nothing changes. So as business leaders, we are responsible for setting the tone, for establishing the values and the way that we operate within our businesses and practices. And then we have to have a plan and measure that plan. And we have to put effort against it and do the right thing. And that's really the embodiment of what they delivered as a message. And kudos to you, Howard, for having them on the show. It was really powerful, really, really powerful, and loved hearing from them. But it really comes down to action. It's time for action.
You bet it is. It is absolutely time for action. There's no question. Let's run the second clip and then we'll get some comments from the rest of you.
Last year, sometime in the summer, I was filling in at one of our offices. And it's an area where you can call it old money. And I was walking the patient out, being professional, doing what I do, and doing a doctor-patient handoff. And while I was educating my optical consultant about what I prescribed for my patient, my next patient was coming in, and he said, "Is that my doctor? That black man, is he my doctor?" And there's about maybe 8 people in there. And they were like, "Yes, that's Dr. Daryl Glover." I don't want to see a black doctor. I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him at all. Can someone get me a white doctor? Is someone else here that can help me? And this was just last year.
So probably one of the more horrifying statements we've had over the past 12 weeks, and one we wanted to make sure you heard again, because this wasn't something he was describing that happened 50 years ago, 25 years ago, 10 years ago. This is something he talked about that happened recently. And it's just, we have to change. We have to make an impact here. And these two guys are really doing a wonderful job. John, I'm curious from your stand, you visit a lot of practices, you engage with a lot of businesses. Are you seeing change? Are you seeing a real effort in making change in this area?
I haven't yet. I haven't traveled to any practices since this whole thing has started, but I did want to back up a little bit of what Holly said on something. So we talked about the 3% of the U.S. population being black, and then, 13% of the U.S. population being black, and then 3% of blacks being involved in optometry in any perspective. And when I did the Something to Think About segment on that show, I talked about 2020 as being the year of courage. And one of the comments I made was, we have to have the courage not to be silent. And I kind of wonder which is worse, right? Being silent and not commenting on it, or talking about it, but having no action behind our words. And I actually think talking about it and having no action behind our words is even worse, because then we're just going through the motions of doing things. And I really think that where this starts, and it's not going to be an instant process. I mean, Howard, you're in the educational process. How do we go through to get the students to mimic the population, the faculty to mimic the population? That's a difficult thing. That's something that's going to take time. And I think that that's what's also going to have to happen in the rest of the fabric of our optometric community. But we need to see real actionable steps. Even if they're baby steps, we need to see people start to make meaningful change, not just talk about it.
Yeah, thank you, John. The 13% that's been mentioned a couple of times now is a promise that Black Eye Care Perspective, the two colleagues of ours who were on the show, have started, and they're asking people to make this promise. And New England College of Optometry has made that promise that we will strive over the next 5 years to reach 13% in our student body, our faculty, and our staff, and our board of trustees. And we think it's a wonderful way to continue the momentum, as has been said by two of our guests. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you do and how you act. Bill, Steve, I'm curious at your end, have you seen change? Are you instigating change? How has it impacted your businesses?
So something that just I think about a lot, especially lately, is a comment that I heard that someday we're all going to look back on this and you're either going to be on the right side of the issue or the wrong side of the issue. And every decision that we make, we need to think about that. Are we on the right side or are we on the wrong side? So I agree with you, John. I haven't seen a lot of action yet, but I believe, and maybe I'm just an optimist, but I believe that we are going to see true change, and it does start with the optometry school. So, I applaud you, Howard, and your organization. That's where it starts, right?
Yeah, no question.
I agree.
I think we're not going to see change until we change ourselves, right, and really look inside. Because for me personally, to hear something like the comment that Daryl made. Daryl and I are friends, and just to hear that, like, it breaks my heart. And right, it's just like, God, it makes me cry. And but also at the same time, it gives us an opportunity, me personally, an opportunity to look inside and say, okay, here are my beliefs, and hold these up against what's happening now, and to really get honest, right, with myself and other, white people, honestly, white people here, and what does that all mean to us? I think that's our opportunity. We have to get introspective. We have to understand where the inequities lie and exist, and we have to commit. And I've accepted the 13% challenge as well in our organizations, and I think it's a great thing we're doing. And I'm a little nervous too next week, because we're doing an interview with Daryl and Adam, actually week after next, on our little show, Conversations from the Zoom Room. And
well, let's promote that by all means. Where do we see that?
There we go. So Conversations from the Zoom Room was our response to, or my response really, to COVID, and wanting to connect with my friends and meet new leaders and find out how they were coping. So that's you can find that on YouTube, OMG TV, and a variety of other places. Thanks.
Hey, Bill, thank you. You know what?
I asked Daryl and Adam Ramsey to ask me some hard questions, right? As a white guy, white middle-aged dude in this business, ask me some tough questions, because I've been on a journey personally to really understand what's going on in my brain, and then help our organization to be as racially diverse and effective as possible.
Howard, it strikes me that we started out in optometry, and look at the scope of the issues that we're dealing with nationally with regard to the climate in business and culture and society at large. So it's something to reflect on.
Yeah, what blows me
Absolutely.
away is
Bill is so right. I was going to say, Bill is so right about we're all on our journey. And first of all, I want to say, Bill, thank you. Thank you for signing up for the 13% promise. I hope others will join us in doing the same. I also want to thank everybody for their participation. I'm going to put you guys on the spot as we kind of wind down here a little bit. Our last opportunity to share our thoughts with our audiences in this first round of our 12 shows that we've done. As you know, the purpose here has been the road back. And I'm hoping that each of you could just take a very short minute or so to share just final thoughts that you may have about the road back and any potential advice you may have. So, Steve, if you don't mind, we're going to start with you. You've been so articulate throughout this. We thank you. You kicked off something to think about for us, and John took it and run with it, and we appreciated that. What would you like to leave us with in terms of a thought regarding the road back?
So I would say what I would leave everyone with is that we can look back at the beginning of that road and really take a hard look at everything that we do, at all our methodologies, at the people that are at the core of our businesses. How did we do things before? Have a vision of how we really want to see it. Maybe it's unachievable, but have a vision and then make sure that every one of our decisions are going to be a positive step, baby steps maybe, but a positive step towards that vision becoming a reality. And we have to do that every day, every single day, and every single person on the leadership team and every single person on the teams in the offices. What are we doing today to achieve that goal? And you know, many of these goals are going to be, we have to be ready to have bumps in the road. Yeah. These are not easy roads, right? So there's a very high likelihood that there's going to be a resurgence. Well, there is a resurgence now of COVID virus. And so what's going to happen the next time there's a big resurgence and we have closures? Just yesterday, the bars closed in San Diego County. So how are we going to respond with the next bump? Are we prepared? We weren't prepared. We didn't have all the things that we needed to go through this, but let's be prepared next time.
I have just one follow-up for you, Steve. You are actively purchasing practices or in the process of throughout this ordeal. And I just think it's useful, especially for California practices, to know that you are someone that they can reach out to if they're looking for a partner, if they're looking to maybe wind down their career or become an employee to an organization that has some depth and breadth. How does somebody that might want to work with you get in touch with you?
So thanks, Erik. And I don't want this to sound like a pitch, but many of you have heard my message that we're better. And I just believe that as we move forward, we have different paths. Everybody can choose their path. I believe, and the folks that have joined Total Vision believe, that we are better together as an organization. And so they can reach me at steve.klein@totalvisionllc.com. Anybody can call my cell, 619-890-3937. But I mean, more importantly, I think the issue is, every doc, every organization needs to choose the path that best fits them. And I think that the thing that gave me so much validation into the things that I've been trying to do the last 5 years is I had a lot of my doctor partners say, I am so happy I did not have to do this alone, right? Because everybody jumped in. What are we going to do about PPE? We had a guy, we had Dr. John Pack and David Chin focused on getting all the PPE for our team. We had people working on, how are we going to get our staff furloughed and then bring them back from our HR department? Optometry is a really complicated business. It doesn't look like it from the outside, but as we all know that are on this call, we know it's complicated, and it just is somewhat easier to be able to have a lot of experts with you working on those different areas.
An executive team can really take the reins when you have to deal with patients and you got to deal with retail. Bill and Howard, if you don't mind, I'll wrap this side of the equation up over here with Bill, and let us know what you're working on, who you can help, how to reach you, if you can be of service to people, and then follow on with Howard's final questions.
Absolutely. So you can reach me. Call me 760-822-8819 or billg@omghome.net, or just call us at OMG. We're based here in San Diego. And Contentlinq as well, our sister company that does digital signage and now apps. I think the issue of the road back is about, to me, it's about communication, right? I think we've experienced this heightened level of communication through video chat, right? The paradox is we were all isolated, hunkered down, but we were probably having more interactions than anyone. So it's I think the road back has to involve a lot of communication, reaching out to other leaders, learning from people, telling people, hey, I am having this problem. I need some help, man. And that's the part to me that's been the most encouraging, is how open and receptive, and people like, hey, can we do a Zoom? Yeah, call me at 2:30. Great. So I think that's a huge part. To Steve's point, the vision, right? It's been our vision to elevate the optical retail experience, right? That's what we do, and that's what we're focused on. And I think just stay with your vision, make sure you got the right folks, keep checking, because the journey or the road back isn't this magical place where all of a sudden there's this light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're going to have problems, right? We're going to have resurgence. So let's just be positive and open and make it happen.
And
right?
keep going.
Keep going.
Keep
yeah.
going.
Keep going on the road. So props to you. Props to you for getting out on the road, man. That is amazing.
Keep
That's
going,
amazing.
Steve Klein. Keep going, Bill
Yeah.
Gerber. Howard, I know we're getting long, so we can wrap up this side of it. And I know we've
Yeah,
got some
thank you, guys. No, we appreciate it very much. I certainly want to give Holly and John an opportunity, but thank you to Steve for his contribution to the show, and thank you to Bill again. So, Holly, we're going to kick it over to you. Shameless plugs are apparently allowed, so feel free. But in addition, we would love you to.
It's the last show, Howard. Lighten up.
Well, I'm happy to expand my 30 and 30 to 100 and 100 or whatever that looks like. So I will forever be here to support the growth of the industry and the amazing people that are part of it. And that goes without saying. And I think it's pretty easy to find me, so I'm not going to give myself a shameless plug. But Howard, I want to throw in a challenge, not just for the folks on the call, the video today, but for everyone who's listening in our industry, and reframe the thinking about the road back. I don't think there is any going back. And I think we need to start thinking about it as the way forward. Because what I think would be tragic in all of this is if after these last 12, 16 weeks and all the incredible growth and the progress and the learnings, if we went back in any way to what it was before this all started. I mean, 2020, you've heard it called lots of different things. I love the word, the awakening. We all thought that 2020 would be the year of vision. I think it is the year of vision. And that implies a way forward. So what did we learn from a humanity standpoint as people? What did we learn as businesses and business leaders and world leaders? And how can we do better and be better in the future? There's no going back.
Absolutely. Wow. I love that. I really love that reframing of it. Thank you so much. And thank you for your contributions over the past several weeks. You've always been there when we've asked. Thank you so much, Holly. And you've added so much as well. So, John, before Erik, you bet. John, before Erik and I get our last words, you get the last word as far as guests are concerned. And I want to stay first, John, thank you for your commitment to something to think about. We've had a lot of positive feedback about it. We appreciate it. So you get the last opportunity to say perhaps something to think about.
Okay. Well, I will tell everybody my email address. So if you want to get in touch with me, because I've been helping practices for a number of years, it's John, John, at prmi.com. You can just reach out anytime. I think Holly and I think a lot alike in the sense that there is no going back. And what struck me the most about this entire process, the human condition is somewhat fragile, but I have been amazed each and every day that goes on about the resilience of people and the resilience of our profession. And I think that taking all of the individuals' comments here today, from Steve and Bill talking about vision and maximizing your business and how we need to make formidable change by not staying silent and actually doing things, I think that those are the things that are going to frame our path forward. And I think we're at a very big pivot point in optometry to really take a leadership role in healthcare and really be the primary care providers that our profession has wanted to be and has strived to be for years to come. And maybe they, as they say, crisis is the mother of all invention. And maybe that starts to create some very creative, innovative approaches to how we deliver eye care in the future, more compassion, more empathy, better patient care by being more conscientious. So I echo Holly's comments completely. Is going forward, we have to do things differently. And I think it'll make a big, big difference in how we're perceived in the healthcare community.
Well, thank you very much, John. Erik, I hope a lot of people listen to these messages because they are powerful messages, not only what we've done the past 11, but this show as well. Buddy, I'm going to give you a chance to add your final thoughts. It's been a pleasure working with you, my friend. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you for your professionalism and what you brought to the show. We appreciate it. We all do. And thank you for what you continue to contribute to our profession. It's yours, bud.
Oh, man. I thank you for bringing this whole thing together and having the vision to bring the leaders together that could really contribute to this conversation. I want to thank our guests today, Steve and Bill and Holly and John. Thank you for everything that you've done for all these weeks. This whole team has been fantastic. It's been a dream come true for me to report from the field across the country on this industry that over the last 12 or 13 years I've gotten to know, following TV and production, and bringing all these things together has been really rewarding for me, because my production partners across the country have played such a big role. All Things Media just really helped develop this format and process for delivering this content, and I want to thank everybody there. Rich Maharaj, Adam Levine. We've got Dave Ziggy Blumenthal at the wheel every week, and these guys are stepping it up. We're just adding a new element every week, and I hope we can continue that to really elevate the production, the production and the storytelling, and the ability to bring these things forward. From the offices of the executives that run this industry, from the top level right down to, and I don't mean street level in sense that it's any lower, but it's the street level where the business is happening, like, at scale with, Steve's got 35, 40 practices, going to grow to 100 or 200 or more. Who knows? There's a lot of business to be done here, and these things are scaling and getting really interesting. So again, thank you, Howard, and the educational component. Good luck at NECO. And I don't want this to feel like we're winding down, like winding down. We're just going to take business-friendly 4th of July to everybody. This is America. It's about freedom. We have to find a balance on health, safety, business, profitability, family, life.
Well said, buddy. It's been a pleasure. This has been an amazing ride, and I hope this is the first of many series like this we'll continue to do. It's been a lot of fun. And so I guess my last comment will be this. I've enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody for being a part of it. I had a chance 2 days ago to listen to the Dean of Harvard Business School, and I'm going to share a thought, perhaps as a good closing opportunity for us. We have an opportunity as a generation. We have an opportunity to make a big change, something that has been lasting for over 400 years. We have an opportunity for our grandkids and our great-grandkids to look back and not only remember the greatest generation, but remember our generation and how we made a difference on something that had been built over 400 years. I hope we can make an impact. We've tried to do our little part here at InsideVision to continue to bring you that information. I want to thank everybody who's participated. We look forward to the future. Erik, it's been a pleasure. We could not have done it without your expertise. Thanks, buddy. And this is it for at least our first series in InsideVision. Take care, everybody.
That's something to
Thanks
think about.
Thanks for watching InsideVision. To receive updates about our programming, click subscribe.